Hey friends! Okay, today I'm going to teach you how to spin wool on a spinning wheel. I'll show you the spinning wheel that I have, and I'm using actually my own raw wool, but you can use any wool. I'm just going to use what I have as the example. So today I'm going to teach you how to hand spin your own wool into a nice little yarn for yourself. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, step one, we're going to put the bobbin on the wheel. So we have our bobbin. There are two different ways to do it, and the way I'm going to show you is the small end, not the big end, okay? I haven't actually done the big end yet as much, so I will show you. Okay, this is how you do it. There's a little latch here on this side that you bring all the way forward, okay? That latch comes all the way forward, this comes down, and this whole thing comes off. Okay, pretty sure it's called the flyer. This piece comes off. This is just kind of in there, fits perfectly like that. Okay, so we take this off, and then I'm going to put the small end, and I'll show you what I mean by small. This circle right here is smaller than this circle, and I'm going to work with this tension. So this end is going to be in the back on this. So we load it on like this, okay, and then we just slide this guy back into place, how he goes, and then he goes in right here. Okay. And then that just slides into place there, and this tightens. Okay, when you put this back on, you want to make sure that the strings are between the bobbin and the flyer that you just put together, okay? The strings are between there, but they're all the way at the base, that way it's not too tight. Then you take these strings and you wrap it around the bottom of the wheel, and then up the sides. So now it's just evenly on this track right here, okay? And then one of these strings goes on this back piece right here, and one of these strings goes on the bobbin itself, okay? So you have a string here and you have a string here. You have a string here and you have a string here. These are involved with the tension. I always use this first one, and I use the small one here because that's what I like the best, okay? Now, this guy, you can twist him back and forth to get the tension. What he does is he slides this whole thing up or down to this wheel. So that, because you want this to have a nice tension, see, like this, like a guitar string, not loose and not so tight it's going to snap, okay? So you want to get this just right, and if you have it at that just right amount, you can fiddle with this, loosen it, tighten it a little bit. One way loosens, one way tightens, until this string is the right tension for this. And that's important because that brings in the yarn. As you're spinning the yarn, these will spin this bobbin. If it's too loose, the bobbin will just slip through and it won't catch it and pull the yarn in onto the bobbin. Okay, so we've got that down. Okay, now we have this guy. Almost looks like a little crochet hook. See? Very useful. Favorite tool. You can use a crochet hook if you lose this guy, but this is a good tool, okay? Right here, it goes in right here to this point, and then you take your leader string and you just hook it on there, okay? And then pull it through. Okay, now I'm using my wool, like I said, raw, right off the sheep, sheared, okay? If you don't like that method, that is totally fine. If you want to do it the longer way, most people do it that way, and that is totally fine. The longer way would be to wash this first, let it fully dry, and then you get the carders, and then you use the carders and you cart the wool to make the fibers all lay the same direction. I personally like to just spin right from this, not washed, I spin it all up, and then I knit with it, and then I wash it in the end. I like doing it that way. You don't have to do it that way at all. I think I am more of an exception than the actual rule. Most people put in a lot of prep time, and I just start my machine, grab my dirty wool, and go. For me, that works, and so that's how I do it. Okay, now, no matter what your wool is, you're going to start with either roving, which is when people brush it out and they've got like long strips like this. It's all like long like this. I'm just actually pulling my own wool to make a long strip. You're going to start with your roving. You have your leader, okay, which is just a different string, okay, and you want to, if you can see this to here, you're going to want to overlap it. So you're going to start it here, and then both feet on the pedals, one on each. You're going to spin the wheel. Okay, I'll do it with this hand so you guys can see. Spin the wheel the direction you want to go first. Don't forget which direction you decide is your first direction. It doesn't really matter. Just be consistent, okay? Okay, I start the spinning wheel, okay? This is going to start twisting here, and I want it to twist on my leader because sometimes it doesn't get on to the bobbin without breaking first. So, okay, there we go. Okay, and how fast you spin is a big deal. So watch your foot pedal speed. You don't want to go too fast because is a big deal. So watch your foot pedal speed. You don't want to go too fast because you don't want your yarn to spin too much. If it's too tightly spun, it will start to spin up on itself too, and it'll be really tight. It's not comfortable to knit with because it's always in little spirals everywhere. It will spin up on itself a little bit just because it's single ply right now. Okay, so we have single ply. So we just keep spinning like this until we have spun up a really nice amount of yarn. Okay, and as you can see here, it is just barely starting to fill up on this. Okay, and I've got these hooks right here on the side. You move the wool like this. Just move it over to the next hook, and then it will start to fill up over here on it. So really the hooks are just to get it evenly across the whole thing. And you want to go until you really can't put any more on it. You want it to be nice and full bobbin. And then you can remove that bobbin and you can do a few different types of plies. I think you should always do at least a 2-ply. But you can do 3 plies. You can do pretty much as many plies as you have bobbins. And so I can show you, I'll show you more about plies in just a second. I just almost forgot to talk about the weight of the yarn now. So now I'm spinning a yarn that's actually really thin. This is a very thin yarn. This is thinner than a sock yarn right now. I like to spin these ones really thin. It's not quite a lace. It's a little bit thicker than a lace, but it's very, very thin. And then when I usually do 3-ply on mine. When my 3-ply is usually about a little bit thicker than a sock yarn that you buy from the store. So that's my preferred size yarn to end up with, but that is totally personal preference. You can spin anything as long as it can fit through this hole. If you want to get chunkier than that, you probably need to use a drop spindle. The way I like to spin mine. So I will continue to just work it like this. So as you can see, my left hand is guiding the yarn as it's spinning, and my right hand is holding back all of this wool and making sure that I'm only letting in the right amount, because if I let in too much or too little, I'll start to have like lumps. My yarn, instead of being smooth like this, will be like boop, 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 which is fine if you want to do artistic type yarns where they've got different sizes and whatever, but you should learn how to do that after you know how to spin the right way. So you want to spin and try and keep your yarn as consistent as you can, and that just takes practice. Don't beat yourself up. It takes practice to get your yarn very consistent. So don't worry about that. You will get there. You also, okay, so this is something that happens all the time, and I realize this is a very important skill to know how to do. So let's say that I'm feeding this, and then all of a sudden, whoops, it broke. Okay, my wool is no longer connected to the rest of my wool, but I still have some on my hand. Awesome. Okay, I will take this and I will feed it up a little bit higher on the stuff I've already spun, and I will reconnect some little tiny strands so that while I'm back to where I was, it has a nice thick strong graft essentially. Okay, so that's how that's going to work. Other times the yarn will split like that and just straight up eat it. It will go all the way in here. You won't have it through here anymore. When that happens, you just get it from this end here and pull it back through here just like we did when we started. We use our little hook. We pull it back through our spun yarn, back out here to this end, and we do the same thing again. It can be really scary when you're first learning how to spin if you lose control of the yarn like this, because you're like, oh my goodness, how do I fix this problem? It's really not a big problem, but it feels like a big problem when you are new to it. I remember being like so afraid. I'm like, please don't break, because it always made me nervous that to re-spin it back, to basically rethread it. But the worst thing you can do is if it snaps, you keep pedaling, because I've done that before too, and I will tell you that it's the worst because this will just fly in there. But when it flies in there, sometimes it just buries itself in there and you can't find the end again, and that is the worst. So if your yarn starts to break or you feel like it's going to break, stop your feet and like work with it first and figure it out, and then once you've got it all worked out again, you just spin it and then you do your feet again, and you'll be fine. So there's no mistake that you make on here that can't be fixed. You just have to kind of know what you're doing, and then you can fix it. So the biggest problem is that you lose control of the wool and the yarn, and then it gets fed into the bobbin too quickly, or if you spin too fast, and you'll start to learn the speed your feet need to go to match your hands. And you don't need to move your feet fast. For me, it's always move your feet slower to keep up with your hands. But once you kind of figure out your own hand-foot coordination and how fast you want to actually spin, then you'll start getting some really good yarns, because that's the biggest part too, is that your hands and your feet are working at a speed that matches the tension you want in the yarn. Okay, so I am now going to show you how to ply the yarn. Okay, so this is called the Navajo 3-ply. We have our leader string. Also, once we've done our ply on this side the first time, then we come onto this side the second time. So the string hooks over here now for the second time, and we spun it first the wheel this way, so now we're going to spin the wheel this way. Okay, but now we're going to come back to this leader rope, okay, our leader string. To start the Navajo 3-ply, I cross it over my own string, if you can see, like this, okay, and then it comes up like that. That's going to be the start. It's like a loop, okay? So now I'm going to spin my wheel going this way, and I've started this. This is going to catch on itself. Okay, now once it's caught on itself, it will hold itself there and I can pause. This is basically like making a giant crochet chain, okay? So starting it is always the hardest part. So this is going to come up here, and I'm going to just hold that in place so it's like a circle, and then this is going to come through here like this, and I'm going to keep it as a loop, and then I'll pull from here. So now I'm going to spin with my foot, and now that's going to start going together right there and making a 3-ply, and I always keep a loop, okay, and the loop, and then I pull my new string through my loop, and then I pull my new string through the loop every time. I just keep doing this, and it makes a 3-ply all the way to the end. This is a little bit, in my opinion, a complicated way to do it if you've never spun before, but if you've gotten comfortable with spinning, this is my absolute favorite way to do it. It seems complicated, but once you do it, you realize it's really not super hard. You just keep the loops going. You never let go of the loop with the string. Okay, and it keeps going over itself just fine. And as you can see, my yarn here is perfectly smooth. There is no bumps in it. There's no weird lumps. Like, this makes a very smooth 3-ply yarn. So we're going to keep going this way. My favorite for doing this, my favorite reason, I guess, for doing this one is that it doesn't waste any yarn. So no matter how long I have spun on my bobbin, I will go to the end, and then when I get to the end, I just take this one and I just kind of fold them up in here, so the tail of it just goes right in there with it, so that it just ends with a nice little clean loop. So no matter how much yarn I have, I won't have any random tail ends of leftover yarn from spinning. So I like this method, plus it makes a really nice 3-ply out of a single strand of yarn. It does take some practice, but once you've got it down, I think you'll really like it. It's been my favorite. It's a nice 3-ply way of yarn. And then once you're all done, what you will do is you will just take this off. You'll take all of this off and you will just spin this up however you want. If you want to roll it up into a ball, or if you want to fold it all up into a pretty little loaf of yarn, that is up to you. But there, that is how you spin yarn. So I hope you guys enjoy it.